June 2025. The world watched in fear as a shadow war between Israel and Iran erupted into open conflict. A devastating cyber-attack crippled Iran's main port. Tehran blamed Israel. Days later, explosions rocked an Israeli military base. Israel pointed to Iran and its allies. This wasn't another proxy skirmish, it was a direct clash between two regional giants. Israel launched deep airstrikes inside Iran, targeting military sites. Iran retaliated with waves of drones and missiles. Some broke through Israel's defenses, turning once-safe cities into battlegrounds. The war quickly spread beyond borders. Iranian-backed groups in Lebanon, Syria and Yemen joined in, launching rockets and attacking ships. The Middle East was ablaze, and the world was unprepared. Years of US diplomacy to contain Iran and protect Israel had failed. The conflict was no longer secret or contained. It was a hot war, with real casualties and global consequences. Modern technology, drones, cyberattacks, mixed with ancient rivalries. Both sides believed their survival was at stake. For Israel, it was about stopping a sworn enemy. For Iran, it was about resisting years of pressure and attacks. The stakes were existential, and the world could only watch, anxious about what would come next. The war's shockwaves were just beginning. The region's sense of security vanished overnight. Old alliances were tested and new dangers emerged. The conflict was no longer about territory, it was about power, survival, and the future of the Middle East. The world's attention was fixed on the region, bracing for escalation. The war had changed everything in a matter of days. The Middle East would never be the same. This war isn't just a Middle Eastern crisis, it's a global shock. The Middle East is the world's oil and trade heart. When it's in turmoil, everyone feels it. The US once dominated the region, but now its power is challenged. China and Russia watch closely, seeking advantage. Old alliances are strained. Europe needs Middle Eastern oil but is tied to the US and Israel. No one wants to get involved, but no one can ignore the conflict. The United Nations is paralyzed. Big powers block each other, leaving the world's peacekeeper powerless. Global uncertainty grows. Will the war expand? Will nuclear weapons be used? These questions freeze investment and spark fear. The price of food, travel, and daily life is affected everywhere. The Iran-Israel war is more than a regional fight, it's a shock to the global system. International institutions look weak, and smaller nations feel exposed. The world's old order is breaking down, tensions and mistrust rise between nations. The war's impact is immediate and far-reaching, instability is the new normal, the world is holding its breath. If you've noticed gas prices soaring, blame the war. The Middle East supplies much of the world's oil. War there means risk, and risk means higher prices. Oil companies fear attacks on ships and fields, so they charge more. The biggest danger? The Strait of Hormuz, a narrow waterway where a fifth of the world's oil passes daily. Iran sits on one side and has threatened to close it before. If Iran blocks the strait, global oil supply plummets and prices skyrocket. Even the threat makes shipping insurance expensive and deters tankers. Countries like China, Japan, and many in Europe would face shortages and economic chaos. Higher oil prices ripple through everything. Food, manufacturing, heating, inflation rises, and poorer countries suffer most. Protests and instability follow. The war's impact is felt at every gas pump and grocery store. It's not just a distant conflict, it's in your wallet. The global economy is at risk. Energy insecurity is now everyone's problem. The world is learning how fragile its supply chains really are. The fight between Israel and Iran is everyone's business. For China, this war is a defining moment. China buys oil from both Iran and Saudi Arabia and trades with Israel. Its strategy was to do business, avoid politics, and profit. Now, its partners are at war, and oil supplies are threatened. China is the world's biggest oil importer. Its economy depends on Middle Eastern energy. Staying neutral is no longer an option. The world is watching. Will China act like a true superpower? Will it try to broker peace, protect oil shipments, or pressure Iran? Acting means risk. China could make enemies or get dragged into conflict. Doing nothing makes China look weak and endangers its energy security. China faces a dilemma: intervene and risk failure, or stand aside and lose credibility. Its dream of global leadership is on the line. The war is forcing China to choose economic giant or global power. The dragon is being tested as never before. The outcome will shape China's future role in the world. The world is watching China's next move. For China, the Strait of Hormuz is a lifeline. Half of China's imported oil passes through this narrow waterway. Any disruption threatens China's economic stability. Beijing has tried to reduce this risk, building pipelines, storing reserves, and creating new routes. But nothing matches the volume that comes through the strait. The Iran-Israel war puts this artery in jeopardy. Iran controls the strait and could block or endanger shipping if the conflict escalates. This is China's nightmare, a sudden cutoff of energy, factory shutdowns, and economic shock. That's why China can't ignore the war. Its relationship with Iran is strategic, about keeping oil flowing, not just politics. China has kept buying Iranian oil despite US sanctions. Now, that partnership is under strain. Iran's war with Israel threatens the stability China needs. Beijing is caught between its need for oil and its desire for peace. The strait's vulnerability exposes China's dependence. The war is testing China's strategy and its ability to protect its interests. The stakes for Beijing are higher than ever. The world's energy flows hang in the balance. China is treading carefully, like walking a tightrope. Its leaders avoid bold statements, instead calling for calm and dialogue. China wants to be seen as a neutral, responsible power. Behind the scenes, its diplomats urge Iran to avoid escalation and talk to Saudi Arabia to prevent regional spread. China recently helped restore ties between Iran and Saudi Arabia, hoping to play peacemaker. But its influence is limited. China lacks the military and political clout of the US or Russia. Beijing doesn't want to anger Washington or risk confrontation, so it balances protecting its interests in Iran with avoiding a fight with the US and Israel. This cautious approach reveals China's limits. It has economic power, but its global influence is still developing. China isn't ready to be the world's policeman. The war is forcing China to learn fast. Its hesitant steps show it's still adjusting to its new global role. China wants to be a global peacemaker, but the Iran-Israel war exposes its limits. Brokering peace between Iran and Saudi Arabia was easier. Both wanted out. The Iran-Israel conflict is deeper, with little room for compromise. China has little leverage over Israel and only partial influence over Iran. Its main tool is money, but economic promises can't stop missiles. China lacks the military presence and alliances to enforce peace. Calling for calm is easy, making it happen is much harder. The war is a harsh lesson. Economic power isn't enough to shape world events. China's peacemaker image is being tested and found wanting. The Iran-Israel war signals a shift in global power. The unipolar era of US dominance is ending. The world is becoming multipolar, with the US, China, and Russia all vying for influence. The US is still powerful, but no longer the sole authority in the Middle East. China seeks influence through economics, Russia through military and politics. Regional powers like Turkey and Saudi Arabia are more independent. The rules are less clear, and big powers often clash at the UN, causing gridlock. Without a clear leader, conflicts burn longer and spread wider. For China, this is both a chance to lead and a risk to its own security. The new world is more chaotic and unpredictable. Regional wars can quickly become global crises. The future of power is being decided now, in the Middle East's fires. Uncertainty is the only certainty. As the war drags on, the world waits anxiously. If Israel strikes Iran's nuclear sites, Iran could close the Strait of Hormuz, triggering a global economic crisis. The US might intervene militarily, risking direct conflict with Iran and possible escalation. For China, a prolonged war threatens its energy security and economy, possibly forcing it to act. China could push for peace talks or send ships to protect its oil tankers, a major shift in its global role. The US tries to support Israel without getting trapped in another Middle East war. Russia benefits from the chaos, supporting Iran and enjoying high oil prices. The crisis highlights the rivalry between great powers, with the Middle East as their chessboard. The war is a stark reminder of global interdependence and fragility. Two nations' conflict threatens billions worldwide. China faces the risks of global leadership. The US faces a changing world order. Whatever happens, the world will emerge changed. The path to stability is now more uncertain than ever.